At 7 p.m., I'd like to call the meeting to order, the Morton Grove Public Library Board. Will you please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary Berg, can you call the roll?
Paul Berg, you're here. Thank you. Dr. Kalamack.
Here.
Mr. Goldstein. Here. Mr. Hoffman.
Here.
Mrs. Peters.
Here.
Mrs. Quinn.
Here.
And Mr. Elbers.
Here.
All present.
We move to point 3, approval of minutes, board meeting of October 13, 2011. Can I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the meetings.
Second. And a second. Is there any discussion, comments, or changes? None. Can I have a vote to approve?
I'll take a hand vote. Everybody approve? Anyone disapprove?
Passes. Thank you. Executive session meeting minutes, October 13, 2011.
I move to approve the minutes of the executive session of October 13th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Are there any comments, corrections, or changes? None noted. Could I have a motion to, or a vote to approve?
Hand vote. All approved.
Motion
Motion
passes.
passes. 7-0.
Approval of minutes special board budget meeting of October 25th, 2011.
I move to approve the minutes of the special budget meeting of October 25th, 2011.
Do I have a second? Second. Any changes, questions, or comments? None noted. Can I have a
I'll take a hand vote. All approved. 7-0.
It's approved.
Can we collect the executive session minutes again, then, please?
Special reports, I have none tonight. Point 5, public comments on agenda items only. If there are none. President's report, very short and brief. Pardon?
There were some requests.
I only have 2.
Are you looking for mine?
Mark?
Is it agenda item? Then they'll be, yeah, that time will be right at the end of the meeting.
Mark? One has a question mark on agenda.
Okay, if it's an agenda item, who is it they like to come up?
It's on the Skokie Library policy. I don't know where that comes.
It's a non-agenda item. Could you wait towards the end of the meeting?
Sure.
Thank you. President's report, just short and quick. Tonight we'll move forward and finalize the 2012 budget. just like to comment that I'm proud of the work that the co-directors put into doing this. It was different. It was a zero-based budget. I think they did a remarkable job, and I'm looking forward to the board moving forward on this. So that is all I have to say. If we could move to point 7, the treasurer's report.
You've all received your updated cash statements. Our total fund right now is $1,608,311.17. The good news is that we have received, I'm sorry, that was the one for the end of the month. The one as of tonight is $2,120,807,000.95. And the difference in those two numbers reflect the fact that we've received the vast majority of the money, of the tax money that we are expecting from the state. We're very well, we're doing very well, comparing these line items of this year to last year. I do have a report for the Finance Committee, but I'm going to hold it until we get to the retention of the financial advisor under new business. Does anybody have any questions about the income statements or the check register for this month?
Can I just ask a question on the cash statement? It's just more of a, I guess if I think about, so if I look at the income statement that we have for this year and the balance of the property tax receipts versus what has been received in the interim from month close to today, do they typically come, and I know it's kind of a little bit random, but if I think about, we got a little over $500,000 and we've got 772 that's still budgeted for. Are we expecting the balance of that, call it 260?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be here. It comes super random.
Yeah, I kind of knew that, but
Yeah.
since we're kind of at a quarter standpoint with a quarter,
We're ahead of where we were last year.
Okay.
This is good news.
Yeah, the 772 does not include a large amount that just came in this
Right,
week.
right.
So,
Okay, any questions on the income statements or the check registers?
One question. Pardon my ignorance, but EBSCO, accounts receivable.
Those are
EBSCO.
that's the magazines, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's yearly
Periodicals that we get,
for the year.
just curious.
If there are no other questions, I would like to submit this report.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
I move the board accept the treasurer's report as presented.
And have a second? I'll accept. Okay.
Show of hands,
Accept.
accepted.
Yes. Committee reports, any from the Finance Committee?
I'll defer my committee report to new business under A11A.
Retention. Building and grounds, anything to report out on?
Well, I think everybody got the confirmation from our legal counsel that we do not have an issue moving forward with starting to work against, making some improvements for accessibility to this building.
I take exception to that. I asked my grandson, who just was admitted to the bar, to look up some information on that. And he came back to me with Title 71, Public Buildings, Facilities, and Real Property. And in here it says that all public facilities, alteration costs 15% or less. If the alteration costs 15% or less of the reproduction cost, the element or space being altered shall comply with the applicable requirements for new construction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. It also says here, all public facilities other than state-owned, alteration costs 15% to 50% and more than 100% if the alteration costs more than 15% but less than 50% of the reproduction costs, and more than 100,000, the following shall comply with the applicable requirements for new construction.
That's correct.
Which means that everything has to be done.
No,
If you do that.
no, let me, if the building and grounds, so when our subcommittee had met at the end of September, toward the end of September, that was one of the things, and we looked exactly, and every one of the buildings and ground committee had exactly that same piece
Yeah,
of
this is
information
public
from,
knowledge.
yes, exactly. And so if we think about what would be if we had to completely replace this entire building, so the cost and associated, those percentages that you read off are associated with the cost of basically, if we had to completely, replace the building as it is today, basically, what's our replacement cost, is a lot of us think about homeowners insurance and stuff, but those apply in the same manner. So we are aware of it, and I think one of the things as we think about ultimately, if we move forward with the Ingberg Anderson, how do we think of the scope of the work that we need to do, and at what thresholds does that suddenly cross the line, to your point, of when that suddenly comes to play or not. I think before we get too far down the line of what, how much funding or anything else we need to have, I think we need to define scope of work of what needs to be done, specifics, what timeline is, what duration would be, and then as a board we can make those evaluations. But I think we all are aware of exactly that. I gave everybody hard copies, so we all are fully, at least have the documentation.
Okay.
So
But
thank
again,
you
go
for
back-
bringing it up.
Go back to it, and if we have to spend more than $100,000, and that's certainly possible, then it's the same as building a new building.
There's certain timelines, there's certain
15%.
timelines.
No.
There are
State
timelines
specifically.
associated within a certain duration of time from the time that you start, and I can pull it out. But there are timelines associated with those percentages for the duration of work over an extended period of time. And I won't guess as to what it is, but I can look it up in the air if need be. But yes, fully agree, and we would do everything from a building and grounds committee that
We
would
do have to
be
do whatever we have to
within
do.
all of the legal parameters that we have. I can confirm that. But I think before we get there, we gotta at least define what the scope of work is.
True. Thank you.
All right, that's, no policy report that I'm aware of.
So just as a question then from building and grounds, since the October where there was a proposal and the decision was to wait and have an answer for what our legal provided counsel for, to bring that up under new business, to come back to the proposal under new business. Needs to be next month.
I think, I don't know.
No, go ahead.
You're in charge, but, I think that you, as a board, you should sit down. I think you already have a study that was already done, right?
We had an assessment that was done. What we're talking about is kind of what would be true scope of work.
I think you have to have a committee, your committee should be addressing that, or maybe as a committee as a whole, you should all sit down and address that. And then you would move forward with.
A special meeting of the board to
A
define.
special meeting of the board or a subcommittee meeting again?
Well, it really doesn't matter, because if it's a committee of the whole, it's a full-blown meeting and it's open to the public.
Right.
Yeah, so, however you would want to handle that, then you would want to sit down and really just have that as your item, agenda item, to go over the assessment and get a feel from all of you together as to what type of work you want to do, and then get your consultant in. Again, get your consultant involved at that point. Or have your consultant present, however,
Okay.
or maybe the directors have an idea how it should go.
Either way, seems like
Yeah.
to me.
Okay, we will have a subcommittee. It'll probably come out looking exactly the way we were looking before, but yes, we will do that again. So we'll plan that accordingly. And then we'll bring them forward as an
Did you
agenda.
already make recommendations as to what you want to do?
So,
No.
no, that's the reason we need to have somebody charged is to go, because none of us, all of us are laymen in our own minds from a, assessment standpoint. So what we need to have is professional scope of work to say, what would it take to get to everything where we need the level of accessibility that we need to? That,
The first point is that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. Unless you start making changes to your building. If you start making changes to your building, then that opens the door that you may have to make some accessibility. But, so you're starting from scratch. But, you have to decide what you want to do.
right. But I think to do nothing is probably not the place we want to be.
I think our meeting should set priorities, or at least come up with priorities and then bring those priorities to the board, perhaps even to the people, to see what would be most advantageous to do in this building that would enhance our accessibility. And I think we can provide the framework for that and then put it up to discussion. But I think we should meet in the subcommittee to put that framework up.
I'm fine with that. We will take that offline.
Staff reports from our directors.
Well, I just have a couple things. We sent the draft budget, as discussed at the last meeting, as board requested, to the village finance manager. And then we'll be sending the approved version, assuming it's approved tonight, to him. And he said that all works perfectly in his time frame, gave things when he needs them. We have a new version of the parking lot piece, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, I guess. And the last thing I have is the new fire alarm radio system, which I talked about in the librarian's report. Hey, I won't go into it again unless anybody has any questions about what it's for, what it does, or anything. Okay.
Mine will be a little longer. October was a great month for us. Our circulation was up again. It was up 4.5% over October of 2010. And this was actually the 18th consecutive month that circulation has exceeded the same month of the previous year. We also received 2 awards in October. The award was the 7 Wonders of Morton Road. We reported about that at the last meeting. And the other award that we received was an award presented by the Illinois Library Association for our Low Vision Fair. Low Vision Fair is coordinated by our library and specifically by Nancy Brothers, who's in the audience, our coordinator of programming and public relations. She coordinates it with 7 other libraries and the Niles Senior Center. And it's the 5th year that we coordinate this activity. We continue providing a number of activities, numerous programs, and high level of services. I will just give you one example of the program that we provided. Brenda Glenn from the Youth Services Department presented Hidden Gems at MGPL to the Heinz School Family Literacy Night. There were 150 people attending that. And the director of Heinz School sent us a thank you note. And the last thing I want to mention is about our collection, and specifically about the VHS videotape collection. By the end of the year, we're going to disband this collection as this format is now going, dying. Actually, our collection has been reduced over the years, and by the end of the year, we are going to completely remove this collection. And the space that we gain will be taken by DVDs. Circulation of DVDs is up and is going up, every month. This will conclude my report.
Thank you. No questions? Council, any reports?
Well, Over the last month, I've done given you a couple of opinions on various matters, and worked with the directors regarding the facilities license agreement for the St. Martha parking lot, which I guess we can go into more detail either now or in a minute. So, okay. Thank you.
If that's it, okay, let's jump right into 10A, old business, the facility license agreement for the parking at St. Martha's.
So we passed out a new version of the lease, which just came this afternoon. And there was a slight problem with it. In the staple version, the photograph on the back does not have our parking spaces marked out correctly, so that's what the single sheet that you have corrects, that they sent later. We met with Frank last Friday to discuss some concerns he had with the agreement and the ones that Art had mentioned previously. And it came down to four items, which I sent back to the Archdiocese Monday, and they addressed 3 of them in our favor, the way we had requested.
Excuse me, Kevin, is that in the new lease?
The changes, yes, all the changes that we requested are in the new lease.
The specifics were, we wanted the property identified in the previous license agreement that they had. They used a street address, which from my calculations is not an accurate street address. And it didn't identify the property sufficiently. So that's why we went back, and Kevin had the, what's Exhibit A.
Yeah, I'm looking at that now.
So that clearly defines it identifies the spaces that are being licensed to the library, and we've further defined that area with specifics in terms of it being the
But it doesn't
church
show
parking lot.
ingress or egress.
What do you mean?
How does the cars back out? They have to go onto the church property then?
We're only identifying the spots. The ingress and egress is already granted by virtue of the license.
I'm not quite sure about
By
it.
virtue of the license to use the spaces,
That means that we can use any portion of the parking lot in order to get into the space?
Right, exactly. We're licensing it for parking. Parking presumes that an individual is going to get their vehicle into the parking
I
stall.
would hope so.
Yeah. So that was item number 1. Item number 2 was there was a concern that I believe item number 2 that we went back with was the license had said that they could restrict the parking if they decided that they needed it for a special event or something like that, that they could temporarily tell us that we couldn't have exclusive use of those. And I didn't like the way that it was written, in that there was no really way to define what temporarily meant and could temporarily occur on a regular basis or something like that. And so what we've done here is we've provided for a notice provision where the library will receive notice if there is going to be a restriction in the license to use those spaces. And in the event that that restriction does occur, then they are going to provide us with an alternate spot.
Does that say that?
Yes, it says that in here.
I didn't see that.
If you look at number 3, use, at the bottom of page 1, it says without any reduction in the fee, if licensor needs licensor's property for special events upon not less than 5 days' notice from licensor to licensee, licensor shall have the right to solely use the parking spaces located on licensor's property, provided licensor provides alternative parking for licensee near licensor's property. So we've made or we made a provision here so that the library is protected in the use of the number of spaces at all times. The third item was revocability, and we wanted the Archdiocese to provide us with a 90-day or 60-day time period. In other words, notice that, in other words, we're going to revoke this.
Cancellation.
Right, right.
I didn't see that in here.
And well, that's not in there. That was the one that came down against us. And, you know, it really goes to the issue, or it really goes to what a license is as opposed to what a lease is. A lease gives you an interest in property. A license gives you a right to use property. So the attorney for the Archdiocese basically said, hey, if you get a 60-day notice or a 30-day notice, then you essentially have a continuing lease for that period of time. And it could be interpreted.
Is that wrong? Is that wrong to ask for some?
It's not wrong to ask for it, but the problem is that they won't give it to us.
They can cancel this lease.
They can cancel
anytime
this at any
without
time.
notice.
No, they have to give us notice. 30. No, they don't have to give us 30 days.
This isn't a lease, it's a license, that's what the difference is.
What, no, let me say, they have to tell us that they're revoking it, but they can revoke it in a sense without notice. You're absolutely right.
I mean, that doesn't.
So we're relying on,
Why can't we get at least a 5-day notice or some kind of notice so we can come up with some alternative parking?
well, I'm sure that in the, as good neighbors will get some kind of notice.
I
But
hope so. That's why I thought
But
it
I-
should be in
but I
there of
was-
some sort.
But I would, well, the problem is the difference between a license and a lease. And if we were on the other shoe, okay, we would be saying, sorry, we're not giving you a lease, we're giving you a license, and that license is revocable at any time. We would be putting forth the same position. This is what is commonly done in these types of situations, is that you don't want to give somebody an ownership interest or an interest in your property. And that's
It's not really an interest.
well, you may think it's not an interest,
Well,
but,
I mean, we're paying rent for it, and we're paying rent for it no matter what. Even if they have, even if
Well,
the
we're not
church
gonna-
has to use it, and there is no other space, we're still gonna pay rent.
well, you're paying a license fee every month, okay? Now, if they revoke it outside of the anniversary of the month, then you're going to be entitled to a reduction in the fee or a refund of the amount that wasn't used.
For that month.
Right.
But
Well, here's the difference. Here's the thing is the library, whether they give us 60-day notice or a 5-day notice, whoever's parking in that parking spot, or in those parking spots, is gonna have to find somewhere else to park. Okay, whether it's 60 days, 5
But that's why we're
days.
signing an agreement with them, so we have a place to park and paying their ask for rent.
Right.
I don't see why it's not a two-way street.
I guess I'm not sure exactly. I mean, you would like to have that if they provide us, or if they were gonna revoke it, they have to give us X number of days notice. You would like to have that in there. We tried to get that in there, and they basically said that they didn't want to agree to it. So that's where we're at with that issue. So that issue is really, it's.
Did they give a
addressed-
reason for that?
Addressed, well, I told you that the lawyer from the Archdiocese said that it would go against the document or the relationship being a license if we had a right to a certain period of time. And I have to confess, I do agree with them that if they had to revoke it on 30 days notice, essentially it's a lease, month-to-month lease, which goes against what the intent of the document was. This is Mr. Goldstein, this is a license
You can
agreement.
call me Art, it's all
This is a license agreement that has been in existence for a number of years, and it's had the same terms in it. In other words, the
Do
revocability.
you think it's proper?
What? I think it's acceptable. I think it's
Because
acceptable.
on any given day, the archdiocese can say, you can't park here any longer, no matter what, and we're out.
Right.
Even though we've guaranteed to pay them a certain figure.
That's what
Even
the
though we
lease
have-
signed last year already.
Well, no, I think what you're, I know what you're, I understand what you're saying. You're saying, hey, we agreed to pay you this for 3 years, so why are you canceling it?
If they have to cancel, let them cancel it, but give us notice, that's all I'm saying.
Well, they have to give us notice, but the problem is they're
Okay,
going to.
that notice could be, you're not here anymore.
Exactly.
This day.
Exactly.
period. That's
Exactly.
not notice.
The last issue that I think that was the last issue that we presented to them was, there is an indemnification provision in here, and there was no reciprocal indemnification. In other words, the library was indemnifying the archdiocese, but there was no reciprocal indemnification, and so I suggested that the archdiocese indemnify the library, which was agreed to.
Is it in the lease?
Yeah, it's in,
I haven't looked at it in the lease.
In the license.
I just got it.
it's in page 8, number 10, item C.
I would just add that I think, yes, it would be nice to have that notice, but they're not willing to budge on it and give the alternative of not having it at all. You
I'm
know,
not saying, I voted for the lease.
Yeah.
I didn't vote against having to lease the property. I just don't quite agree with the verbiage, that's all. I also, on signage, I really didn't understand that on page 4. We're obligated to put signage up showing which is the library.
there are signs out there. There are signs on the fence that say library parking.
Yeah, but then they say here,
Oh,
But if you have written consent, then it's.
it says no signs or anything. It says unless licensee has in each instance first obtained the written consent of licensor, which has already been done.
okay, so it's there now.
So directors, are you comfortable with this?
Oh, wait, there's still
Yes,
more?
I think it's much better lease that we have had for 5 years prior.
Yeah, the way this came to us was the way it's been from the beginning, and so we've made it
It's considerably more,
more favorable to us.
but it's
And more.
considerably more money
And because we're using
More spaces.
50% more spaces.
that we never asked for. We
Well,
never,
we need
we
this.
had never approached them and asked them for more parking. They canceled our last lease and said, this is the deal, you take 10 more
They
spaces.
didn't cancel the last one.
Well, they changed the last one. It
Right.
was not, that was not the wording of the last one, and that was supposed to be negotiable, but they came up with this new deal. with
Well, we went
everyone.
and talked to them, and we said that we do need 30 places indeed. So whether they started or us, library wants 30 places.
Who identified the space originally? I don't recall that. Did we mark the space for parking?
I would imagine that the previous director worked it out with the pastor there as to which spaces it would be.
And that was clearly delineated as to where we were to park.
Yes.
So we're not changing where we were parking.
Well, but up until the end of September, the expiration of the previous lease, that was only for 20 spaces for the first 2 rows.
No, I know,
At the
but all
west
I'm
end.
saying is, who said that we could park 30 spaces? I'm just curious, that's just a question. In other words, originally.
People
we
just
were
started parking there because the 20 were full, patrons and staff. And I mean, going back.
Because
a couple
there's
years.
signage up there showing the parking.
Right, and going back a couple of years, as people started parking there, memos were sent out on, I think, at least a couple occasions saying, these aren't ours, you can't park here. I mean, two staff for that third row that wasn't ours, so to speak. And it worked briefly, and eventually people just would inevitably end up going back to parking there, patrons or staff. And so,
And especially for big programs, patrons would come to the desk and ask, can we park there? And we say no, and they say, what should we do? We came for a program. So, but some still parked and some just left, so.
I just have one question. Since this is effectively retroactive from a timing standpoint, from a payment standpoint, do we go back and pay, or did we already start kind of 2 months? We already
We
paid 2
have
months
paid.
already at this
Right.
rate. Okay, I just wanted to double check. That was it.
Couple small questions. On waiver of subrogation, should the property become uninhabitable due to conditions beyond the licensee's control, then this lease should be voided. And it should say so somewhere.
In waiver of subrogation?
Yeah. It doesn't say that we can, even though, I'm just assuming
It doesn't say that we can what?
we can void this license if it's not habitable.
We can just cancel it.
We can't cancel it.
Sure we can.
If we didn't pay the bill,
Where do we have the right to cancel this lease?
Cancel it anytime.
Show me.
It's a license, it's not a lease.
I didn't understand that then. You're saying that this contract can be canceled by either party at any time without notice, including our ability to.
Right, we don't have to give, it's a license, so we can say.
Stand corrected.
We can say, we don't need
I
your
was not
property.
aware of that at all.
I'm sorry, I thought that was, okay. Yeah, that's another difference between a license and a lease. You're not obligated to the full 3 years.
Okay.
If you decide you don't need it anymore, you build a deck on top of the building or whatever.
I have one other question. How much insurance do we have? Do we have our adequate insurance now?
we have what they specify.
Okay.
They want, yes.
Good.
They mean the architects. And we have a certificate from our insurance carrier along with it to show that.
directors are good, council is good.
Yes, I'm good.
Can I have a motion
I move
to
that,
approve this agreement?
I move that the board approve the facility license agreement for the use of the St. Martin parking lot.
Second.
I have a second. Are there any further discussions, questions? If not, can I have a vote?
Can we take a hand vote on this? All aye?
This is a roll
This is
call
a roll
vote.
call.
Roll call vote. All right, we've got myself, I vote yes. Dr. Kellerman?
Yes.
Mr. Goldstein?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinn?
Yes.
That passes.
Passes.
Ten B, 2012 budget, as presented at the special meeting of October 25, 2011. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move that the board adopt the calendar year 2012 budget as presented at the special meeting on October 25th, 2011. Option B.
I'll second
I
that.
have a second, thank you. Any discussions, questions? If not, can we have a vote?
Dr. Kellerman?
Yes.
Mr. Goldstein?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Peters?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinn?
Yes.
Mr. Berg? Yes.
Mr. Elbers, yes.
Mr. Albers, yes.
Budget is passed, thank you. New business, 11A, retention of a financial advisor.
During the last 2 months, the Finance Committee has been in talks with a couple of financial advisors, specifically PMA and Raymond James. They met with our committee and were asked to provide outlines and guidelines of what they saw to be best for us, and also talk about formation of a investment policy because we have none. So based on that, over the last couple of months, we've been working on that. During our last meeting on Tuesday, the board went over, the committee went over both of the proposals, which you have in your board packet today, and is recommending of the two that we go with PMA. I'd like to point out just a couple of things. If you look at your cash statement from this month, you will notice that Illinois Working Cash Funds, we received 0.5% interest. In going with PMA, even at a basic, PMA, actually, let me kind of go through this with you. The portfolio investment assumptions, there are 2 of them in the report, and that's because we have such wide fluctuations in our working cash fund during the year. So I asked her to put 2 scenarios together, one for the low point of the year, which is at about $800,000 in that one fund, and another at about 1.5 million, which is 1.5 million, which is what it's at right now. At the moment, we are receiving 0.05% interest on this operating reserve money. Just by putting it in this CD, we would be getting a 3 times return on our current investment on the operating funds. For the reserve funds, we are currently getting 0.05% interest. The return on that fund would be 10 to 20 times as much as we're getting now, 0.5% to 1.05% on the CDs. On the reserve funds, and on the special reserve funds, we are currently getting 0.05% interest, and we would be getting 0.25% interest, which is 5 times greater than what we're currently getting. These yields are based on the yields that we would get after the fee is taken. This is the net that we would be receiving. And so based on this proposal, the Finance Committee is recommending that we enter into a resolution with PMA in order to manage our portfolios. Do you have any questions about that?
I do. I'm on the Finance Committee, but I really don't understand if they understand that we cannot take chances with the money. It must be invested in government bonds, in government.
If you look,
Everything has to be certified by the government. CD
we talked
has to
about
be-
this yesterday.
I'm not clear on it.
I'll explain it again.
Okay.
Is this what they're investing?
Yeah, but they-
No, they're investing in CDs, nothing but CDs. This is what their scope of what their company invests in. This just shows the rate of what they charge, how many basis points. What they are advocating that we invest in are all CDs.
FDIC.
FDIC insured CDs. Totally government backed, totally appropriate for libraries.
Why are they getting more than we do by going to a major bank?
Because our money wasn't being managed. Because it wasn't being invested. It was sitting in this Illinois Working Cash Fund. That's why. It's because
Well, you have to
we've
be
been
there.
negligent. That's why.
No, that's not true. Go ahead.
Yes, Walt.
FDIC right now, funds are insured for about 250,000.
Mhm.
Was that up during the?
No, it's not higher, that's what it is.
That's what it is. It was 100,000, but I think it was
It's
raised.
raised to 250.
It was raised to
But if we
250.
got more than that,
No.
it's not insured.
Of
Wait,
course not.
wait, if you look at it, split into 3 CDs of 150, 150, and 127,000. All of this is being accounted for in how they're setting it up. The limits are not going to be, obviously, the FDIC limits would not be
Where are they
exceeded.
going to get this percentage? I'm curious because I've done investing too, and I don't see anybody paying that kind of percentage.
Art, you can go down to Inland Bank right now for 36 months, get 1.5%.
36 months.
36 months.
We can't do 36 months.
Okay, we're limited.
Yes.
Okay, but I'm just saying, it's out there.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But
And it's
only
just as-
long periods of time.
and-
No, not only, this is only a
And it's
half a percent here for 1 year. For one
But
year.
it's just as low because I think the
We can
trend,
get these, we can get these rates.
the trend will be to be going up anyway, so you don't
Hopefully,
want to.
Well,
yeah.
I guess that perhaps to
But I'm
answer
sure
your,
that the trend you would think.
We don't.
perhaps to answer your question, where are they going to get these rates? Is probably the reason that we want to hire them.
But I'd
Because
still
they
like to
can
know,
get these
we're
rates.
entitled to know where it's going.
Absolutely. Then we can ask them and they will show us. But I think the question here is, do we want to hire this group to improve our rate of return 5%?
As long as they understand our
or 9%?
parameters.
I believe they do. They appear to be a professional investment
That
company.
doesn't mean a lot sometimes.
They manage many local libraries.
Yeah.
They have clients, and many of our local libraries are clients of PMA. This is not their first rodeo.
And how are they invested and how are they coming out?
Well, Skokie came out 4% last year.
No.
Yes, they did. It's on, look at their report, look
Totally
online.
impossible to get a 4% return.
It's because they had been invested in longer-term CDs over the years. The rate's gonna go down this year, but their aggregate return last year was 4%. Look online.
With
It's
the
there.
budget we just passed and spending down the reserve amount, having our money tied up in any kind of instruments that for a year could be detrimental when we have to cash them in to pay the bills.
Early.
These are only the reserve, the way it's split up, let me explain this. We have two of these accounts here, the Illinois Working Cash Fund, the $188,000 fund, and the money market account fund at $245,000. Those two accounts have not been touched in 10 years, a penny. Those two accounts, she is proposing to put into $150,000 of it in a 1-year account, $150 into 18 months, and $127 into 2-year account. And so that seems tremendously prudent considering that none of them have been touched in 10 years. The special reserve fund, we're assuming that there's going to be spending out of that. And so she's going to put $50,000 of it in a 6-month CD and the rest, the balance of it, the $64,000 in a 1-year CD.
And what percentage is that?
Which one?
6 months?
The 6 months is a 0.25%, which is 5 times what we're getting right now.
You're making it sound like it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money.
You know,
It really is. I mean, the whole thing, if it's $2,000 difference at the end of a year, that'll be a lot. I'll take it, but it would still be a
it
lot.
just, yeah, and it
It won't
does,
be
you're right,
perfect.
it points out how sad it was that this was going on when the rates were really high, that we were still
No,
unmanaged.
that's not true. When the rates were high, they were invested in higher
They
We're
are,
using
they've
local
been in
banks.
Illinois funds, they've been in Illinois funds since I looked, as far back as I looked on the books. when times were good, they were still sitting in the right funds. This money has not been managed.
Isn't there a rule that says we have to be in normally funds
No.
to some extent?
No,
That's where we're getting the money from.
that's because nobody bothered to do what they were supposed to do and invest it.
That's-
Yeah.
Last question. PMA is a private financial company, and I would assume they're much like a bank. They make their money by having our money and investing it. What I'm asking is there any load on our funds?
It's in there.
Are we paying a service?
Of course, let me explain how it's being taken. You should have had that piece of
It's in
paper.
the packet.
Yeah, it's in a packet.
It's right here.
Let me just pull that sentence out. Okay. Their fees are already accounted for when they give you the net rate of an investment. On the CDs, which you're talking about, FDIC insured CDs, there's a 25% basis points per year. But the quotes that they gave us are net of what we would receive after the basis points were. So you never receive a bill from PMA. It's the same way that your broker works.
Well, as I was saying, you're working with a brokerage house,
Right.
you get either a no load or a front end load or a back end load or
Right, it's
whatever.
a no load.
It's a front end.
Yeah, this is a front end.
They're
load.
taking their money.
What's an investment fee that they're
Yeah.
charging?
Right,
But yeah,
It's
I
like a
know.
management fee. It's a management
it's a management fee.
Well, I said you can go to a bank and get the same rates for free. Although the
Well,
bank is investing your money.
but we're also getting other things. They are making and monitoring a investment policy for the bank. They're trending, if you look at what was in your board packet, all the different things that they're doing for us, for that money. They're not just picking out the things and sticking the money in their pocket. We're going to be having an ongoing relationship with Ms. Rios, and she will attend up to board meetings quarterly. Any questions that we have, any concerns that we have, this is an individual.
There is an understanding, however, that we are not to take risks.
We're not taking risks.
Everything has to be insured.
Everything is insured. That's the law.
Well, no, that's not the law.
For the library, it's the law.
Yes, for us, it's the law.
That's what
but
I'm
not
saying.
for them.
No,
Okay.
You're right, Mr. Wilson, that the library is obligated to make sure that they follow, that their funds are invested in accordance with the Public Funds Investment Act.
Right.
Exactly right.
So we have to be
so
sure that that's what's being
And
done.
I think that that's probably what they are talking about when, up at the top there, they're talking about investing public funds.
Well, they have a list here that I was given, and it shows they can do collateralized certificates.
no. That's not what that list is about. That is a list that you requested of what
It's their fee
their fee schedule is for all the different instruments that the company gives, not for all the different instruments
they're
that
not
the
gonna do
library.
this.
Exactly.
So, with that said, can we have a motion to retain PMA as our financial advisor?
I'd like to make a motion to retain PMA as our financial advisor.
I second that.
Second. Any further discussion, comments?
Oh, and
We're not
and
signing
allow-
this resolution now because giving control over the board's money to a treasurer is something that I don't believe we can do.
No, this is for the bank. This is what we would sign, which allow,
That the treasurer shall make use of investments legal.
the entire, the names that are on here are the names of the people, actually Kevin and Natalia's name should be on there, the people that are allowed to talk to the bank regarding the account. And that's why they ask for the treasurer and the directors. It has nothing to do with who's able to take the money out. It has to do with who they're allowed to discuss the.
Do they understand that every office changes hands every 2 years?
Oh, of course.
So that this is only good for a limited time.
Right. This is just for the bank.
You got any issues?
No, I don't.
Council's good with that agreement. Can we have a vote?
Yeah, we'll do let's see, Mr. Goldstein,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mrs. Peters,
Yes.
Mrs. Quinn,
Yes.
Mr. Elbers,
Yes.
myself, yes, and Dr. Gallagher.
Yes.
Passes, thank you. Eleven B, violation of closed session confidentiality by trustee Hoffman.
Is there evidence that I shared information from a closed meeting session with anybody?
The violation is you recorded the closed session executive.
I recorded pieces of the entire meeting and none of it left this table. It was erased before the meeting was even over. It's just my way of taking notes. There were so many people talking at one time. I just wanted a recording to be sure everything was straight. Natalia and I actually had a conversation about the recording while it was happening with you guys between us, and none of you guys heard it. So having my edges covered while I'm sitting here, I don't believe that's a violation of anything. Taking notes on a piece of paper, as long as I don't share them outside of this room with anyone, I don't believe that's a violation. But there is no recording that was in existence after that meeting. So I'd like to know where the violation came in here.
I would just say that, and I gave all of you this opinion immediately after the meeting. There is only one recording of the executive sessions, and that's the official recording. And
Only one in existence.
No one is to record executive sessions.
Okay, I didn't see that written anywhere. The guidelines that I have just say you can't go up, share anything outside.
You've had training in open meeting acts.
Yes, I can take detailed notes, as long as I don't share them with anyone. It's not a violation of any kind.
Why would you record it? Why would
Like
you
I said,
record an executive
there were so many
executive
conversations
session?
going on. You guys did not hear Natalia ask me if it was recording. I answered her. We're 25 feet apart. We had a conversation, and none of you heard it.
What I did see was information that was from this executive session on the Pro Library Facebook page. Mr. Goldstein, did you talk to anybody on Pro Library about what happened in executive
I have no
session?
idea who that is.
Of course you did. Mr. Burrick?
Are you accusing me of something? I didn't talk to anybody.
Coincidentally, the information from the executive session ended up on a public website. So the only other copy
A
of
recording
that,
of it?
The information.
the wording as discussed in the,
Verbatim.
I have the floor, please.
Thank you.
Coincidentally, that information in our executive session made it onto that public website at 5:35 in the morning, the day after this meeting. The only other recording of this meeting that got outside of this room is believed to have resided on your phone. So if your phone got out of your hands and into
Never,
somebody
and
else's
the
hands.
recording didn't leave this table. It
So
was
the-
erased the second.
The
they turned it off.
impropriety is that you recorded an executive session.
Now, you're jumping
when
to
we are
conclusions
only-
that it made it elsewhere, and I'm telling you it didn't.
I'm not making that conclusion. I'm making the statement that you recorded that meeting when we are only allowed to have a single recording of an
We
executive
have
session,
two recordings right now.
and one goes on file and it never leaves this building.
We're gonna leave this table.
Well, then what was the purpose to record this?
Like I said, to keep the facts straight if there was a question during the meeting. Same as taking notes.
So take note, there's no
I will
further
from now on.
recording of this. That was a violation.
You will from now on.
We'll go to point 12, public comments on non-agenda items. Yes, please.
Maybe I can go over this. I was at the Skokie Public Library about 5 weeks ago because I was working on a project.
Hey, there is a podium and a mic here if you'd like to use it.
Oh, this one?
Yeah. Thanks.
I was at a, I'm not sure it's on.
It is on.
Is it on? Okay. I was at the Skokie Public Library about 5 weeks ago working on a project and doing research, and I was talking with the librarian about taking out books, and she said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Oh, I'm from Morton Grove." And she said, "Well, then you can only take out 3 books." And I said, "Why would that be true?" I mean, I was kind of shocked. She said, "Well, it seems that people from Morton Grove came and talked with the administration of the library and said that the new trustees elected to the Morton Grove Library Board would not be making the improvements in the library this year because they, I don't know why." And I looked at her and I said, "Oh, I know that's not true because I worked on their campaign and they were talking about books and people and programs and improving them and keeping them going." So I guess there are 2 things. I just felt really embarrassed that citizens of Morton Grove would go in a kind of a disloyal way and talk about our board. And secondly, that I was handicapped because I could not take out all the resource materials that I needed. And so I don't know if this policy at Skokie has been addressed by our board, or if you have talked with people there to see what's happening. And coincidentally, there was another man checking out books from Evanston, and he was also told no one now in the other suburbs can check out more than 3 items. And so it's impacting not just Morton Grove people, but people from other suburbs. And this is very interesting to me because last winter, I decided to make a little visit to Glenview Library, Niles Library, and Skokie Library to just verify that the suburban loan policy was still in effect and that we were all free to share resources. And I was very warmly received by the librarians at Skokie and Niles and Glenview, and they all said, this is our policy in the interlibrary suburban system. So I was very confused how suddenly this policy has flip-flopped.
Thank you for your comment. Normally this is public comments and not necessarily something that would evoke a response from the board, but this time I'd like to let you know I called a meeting with the Skokie Library a week ago Wednesday, I believe it was November 2nd. And I went down there to ask them for their reasons why they put a limit on borrowing. And their decision was purely budgetary. And their response to me is they were protecting the assets of the Skokie taxpayers by implementing a 3-piece borrowing policy for all libraries in the system. So I understood that. My whole contention for going down there to meet with them, because I can't influence whether or not they make it 3 books, 2 books, 50 books. The letter that they released specifically called out the Morton Grove Library, and specifically this board. And I let their director know that the information that she had in her letter was incorrect. And I did ask her if she could apologize. We've not gotten an apology. I did make her aware that the information in her letter was incorrect. Her response to me is that she was given reports and this is what she incorporated into her letter. I failed to ask her who provided her with that information. I left there not getting a satisfactory answer why they called us up, or the Evanston Library. But I did make it known that we do want to continue to work together successfully, and they indicated that too, but I didn't get a satisfactory answer why they called out our library, but it was policy that they just decided to put a 3-book limit on everybody.
I can answer that somewhat. I think that you made an error when you wrote a letter to the editor and you made statements on December 9th, 2010. You happen to respond to a letter that I wrote that was published at that time. So I happen to have it. And you made the statement that the local network of neighboring libraries allows easy access to materials that may not be readily available in Morton Grove. That is, after all, the purpose of this network. And that's true. You further said we do not need to duplicate services and pile on added costs. A library is an important part of the community. Ours is well suited to the community as it stands today. The surrounding communities may be able to support these expansive services. But my neighbors, friends, and residents in our village have suffered with reduced salaries, et cetera, et cetera. So actually, you raised the point.
Did you provide that to the Skokie Library?
I did not.
Okay. That's,
It's
okay.
published, and this
There's
is
nothing
Agreed.
inaccurate about that. But the fact of the matter is that the residents
That's
of
what
Morton
caused,
Grove,
that's what caused the problem.
wait, the fact of the matter is that the residents of Morton Grove pay almost the same per capita for library services as the residents of Skokie. We are carrying our weight, we have been carrying our weight, and we are continuing to carry our weight.
Skokie has more than three times our population.
That's why we did the math per capita. How much is
Our
being
collection is
spent?
2/3 of comparable size villages in the
That's
United
not true.
States.
We have to be very careful about what we
It's in
put
the
down in
report.
writing. Is what I'm
What
saying.
the Skokie director had included in her letter was a sentence that read that this board would not be making any improvements to this library. That's not a true statement. So I pointed that out to her.
I think it's very interesting to note that that letter was not supposed to be a public letter.
It is
And it
public.
did,
It
no,
is
no, no,
public.
at that, no, it wasn't meant to be. According to the Skokie librarian, it was supposed to be a letter between libraries. However, within hours of it coming to our library, a board member here gave a copy of that letter to the press. I don't know what we're talking about. Mr. Hoffman?
All right, okay. So are there further public comments this evening?
Well, there's another woman, Joan O'Connor.
I can't hear very well. Joe, can you all hear me so I don't have to go down there?
Sure.
Yes.
I feel that Mr. Hoffman is acting not in the best interest of the library, and I think he should resign because of it.
In what way?
Pardon?
In what way is he not in line with the library?
I can't hear you.
I would say, thank you for your comments. Are there further comments?
My name's Laura Frisch. I'm a Morton Grove resident of 8 years. There was a question during this meeting about something that was written on the Pro Library Facebook page. It's not a website, it's a social media page. I had to look it up, and I believe at the time that we were speaking of, the quote simply says, many questions without answers about Morton Grove Library Board expected to okay budget. It's a, from the Morton Grove Sun-Times, which I believe is the champion. And it it says that the article mentioned that $10,000 was saved by 2 heads of departments and the director leaving, but what about the cost to the co-directors, the unemployment benefits, the pension?
It's
Is
not
this
it.
is
That's
this
not the one.
relevant to, is this
That's not the
relevant to
posting.
anything?
Well, Ms. Peters,
please.
you know what, there is
Laura,
no
this is-
535 posting. There's a 532 posting that talks about finance committee meeting.
No, that's
And-
not it.
And there's something talked about
This
librarian report.
this spot
that's
on
in
the
librarian report.
agenda is reserved for comments, not for the reading of websites.
I'm making a comment in the fact that you are putting on record in this board meeting that
That
something was
comment
written
was
on a computer, on a
On
website.
October 14th at 5:50 a.m. and again at 5:43 a.m. But I'm not going to say what was on there because that was executive session.
Executive session.
There's mentions about gardens.
And if it was removed prior
Yeah.
to this,
I believe this was something that was from the champion.
No,
no. Council, you want a copy? Thank you for your comments.
Mhm. Yeah, I just wanted to also mention, I didn't finish. I just want to mention that $10,000. I'm a bit confused about the budget. Co-director Justy had said that this coming year's budget is going to be $10,000 less than last year's budget. What I don't understand is that there is an entire head position that's gone. There is the pension, and I mean, there is a head that retired and a new head that was hired, and it must be for considerably less than what the old head was. This is a new head that's never been a head of a position at a library before. I'm assuming that she comes in at much lower base price salary. We also are still missing a director. There's a misprint in the librarian's report where it states that the open positions for the library right now are just 2 reference for librarians. I believe there is still an opening for a director position. I don't believe that you all have printed anything in your agendas or anywhere about that coming out. I think that that's a question of, what is going on with the director search. But definitely, if all those things are happening and all those paid positions are not being paid, I don't understand why there's only $10,000 saved from last year's budget. Also, I've not seen anywhere where it's explaining what your fees are for this upcoming financial advisor, what the fees are for the
Are you
attorney that we
through?
have on.
Are you
I will
through?
send
Your
this to
time
you
is-
because we don't know what
Please
what
do,
you're
I
paying
look
for
forward to
attendant right now.
receiving that. Thank
Pardon?
you. I look forward to receiving your question.
I'd like you to respond to it too. You've never responded to any of my emails that I've sent you. Thank you.
I have a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Any objections? We are adjourned. Thank you.